Budget ARs are like dating apps. Everybody looks good in the photos, half of them are lying about their specs, and most can't perform when it matters. Today, two of the smoothest talking, lowest priced rifles in the game square off. One says it's forged in the tears of broke patriots. The other claims it was born in a CNC machine and raised on pure copium. Same steel targets, same drills, same dudes who are tired of excuses. Only one walks away with the title of Best Bang for the Broke. Let's separate the kings from the clowns.
Hey guys, welcome back. Today we have the two best ballin' on a budget AR-15 sitting on the table right at that $500 price point. We have Diamondback's DB15 and we have Palmetto State Armory's PA15 over here. Now there's going to be tons of options for budget ARs that are on the market today. However, we're going to go over a couple reasons why we think these are the two kings out of all those options. What's your thoughts, Jared?
Yeah, I mean, we've done a ton of research, read a bunch of reviews. We have some hands-on experience with some other ones. But at the end of the day, because of just how big the companies are, how available these are, and the manufacturing process that goes into these two, that's why we picked them. And what's going to be exciting is, you know, we took them out and we're going to decide between these two which ones we like the most. Diving into some of the specs on these, very similar in a lot of ways. They both have 70-75 aluminum blowers. They both have 4150 barrels. These particular ones are the 16-inch barrel models. Both of them can be had with Magpul furniture, or if you prefer that A2 style kind of traditional look, you can get it with those. The Diamondback is a 1-in-8 twist, and the PSA is a 1-in-7. So that is one difference between the two. Other than that, they're really mil-spec. These particular ones, we have the Sightmark M spec sitting up here, which is that EOTech style of optic. And then this one's got the Sig Sauer MSR Gen 2. The only other thing you might notice is I changed the charging handle on this one. It says Arizona because I like Arizona because we live here. So other than that, I mean, it's the same style of charging handle and they really are very similar in every other regard. First thing we did was we just took them out to the range, set some steel targets up at about 20 yards and just had some fun. No drills, no timing, nothing crazy yet. Just had some fun. Right off the bat, can't say I noticed anything. Your thoughts?
Not a darn bit of difference between the two initially.
Okay. After that, we set up some barriers and we did some Lucas Botkin style moving around.
High knees.
Yeah, well, he's got skinnier legs than me, I'll say. And I'm sure he's faster. But, you know, kind of running from barrier to barrier, just doing some transition target shooting. It's worth noting there's a ½ pound difference between the two. The PSA weighs 7 pounds. The Diamondback is 6.5. I didn't notice it at any point. I'm sure you didn't either.
Not unless you're, you know, a weight nut, you know, like you're backpacking and rucking and every
sure.
ounce matters now.
So didn't notice anything different there. Pointability, balance of both rifles. We'll get into trigger later, but at these short distances, I didn't notice any difference with the triggers. I prefer this optic, which I think helped me shoot the PSA a little bit better as I was moving from torso to torso. And then the first real like drills that we did was we had kind of a stage at 10 yards and we sprinted 50 yards back to the other barrier. And then at 50 yards, we were taking some shots. Still didn't notice any major differences between the two. I felt like I shot them both relatively well, sprinting around and all those different things. But what were your thoughts on the 10 to the 50, just kind of shooting on the front end of our drills that we were doing?
Well, overall, we had fun, and that's the most important thing. So initially, I didn't notice a darn bit of difference between one rifle to the next. The only thing that made me gravitate to the PSA a little bit was probably the sight mark on it. I am a big fan of the EOTech. I run that on my other rifles, so that's kind of the crux there. But again, rifle to rifle, not a darn bit of difference shooting it. The real difference for me came when we went out to 100 yards and we dropped a scope on it. We went ahead and put a Vortex Diamondback 4-12 on there and we shot for groups at 100 yards. I was behind the PSA first, and I'll tell you, that trigger hits a wall and it just does not want to give it up. Very difficult to overcome, not smooth at all, and made it very difficult for me to follow up with consistent shots. Now, however, when we made it over to the Diamondback, night and day. Basically, the trigger was much more consistent, smooth. The break was much easier and allowed me to follow up with some more consistent shots. What was your thought?
Yeah, I think we see it too. When we show the grouping at 100, you'll just see it's just easier on the Diamondback. You get slightly better groups out of it. And that's not a barrel thing. I think the barrels are very comparable. Yeah. It really is just the difference between the two mil-spec triggers. shooting the targets at 100 yards. So once we moved off the paper and just kind of did some of the transition style drills from the barricade at 100 yards to 120, you don't notice it as much because you're shooting a torso, and so the little differences between the trigger didn't affect impacting, but certainly it's something that you notice when you're trying to hold steady on a flimsy barricade and make some of those follow-up shots at that distance. I definitely noticed as well that the Diamondback trigger was just cleaner. It broke cleaner, and it made it easier to keep your scope on target and have follow-up shots. But again, I mean, neither of these are built for like precision shooting, and if that's something you're looking to do, you're going to want to upgrade the trigger as a whole, as another piece you got to put into this. But speaking of triggers, not long range, but speaking of triggers.
Well, yeah, speaking of triggers, we went ahead and we dropped an FRT into both these ladies here. A little bit of tuning, attempted an H2 buffer. We got some squirts out of it. And then with the H3 buffer, that corrected it. And both these girls, they ran. They ran great, and we had a blast and spent some money on ammo that day running around playing with the FRT there. So one thing to note, I mean, they both come with the mil-spec full auto bolt carrier groups, and thus far they both held up to us kind of beating them up with that trigger in there, and we didn't have any issues once we got it tuned. So one thing I know that's really popular and people are looking at when they buy an AR these days, so good to know there. I think that's a positive for sure.
No, and I think one of the things the FRT does too is it increases the heat really, really fast. It's just because it's putting so many more rounds through it that much faster in rock and roll mode, if you will. You put 3 mags through it really, really quickly. There's a lot of heat buildup. Both of them dealt with it really well. We didn't have any failures as they started to really accrue heat. We never cleaned them as we were out there either. And I'm not suggesting we put thousands of rounds through each of them at the same time, but quite a few rounds, no cleaning, and then we weren't gentle with them when we put the FRT in there, and they both ran really well. So, by the way, running drills with FRT, super fun. So
highly recommend.
Yeah, no kidding.
Bring extra ammo.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what it really comes down to is 2 rifles that are presenting a ton of value. They're very similar across the board. One slight difference being the trigger that we've talked about. You could obviously go with whatever budget sight that you wanted that fit what you wanted to do with it. These are 2 that are in that price point. So with all factors being relatively similar, if both of these are on the shelf at your local gun store, which one are you taking home?
Well, right now, just with what we've experienced with both these rifles, I'm probably going to lean to the Diamondback. You know, and overall, they're both great firearms, and I'd be happy to own either one of them. And I think they're really they're neck and neck, you know, minus the little trigger thing that we discovered, and that's easily fixable. Overall, Palmetto State Armory's warranty, I believe, is better. I don't think they give you any grief. If you own the firearm, send it in. They take care of what's within their warranty, where Diamondbacks is more directed towards the original purchaser of the firearm. But both of them are going to make great additions to your safe. So, yeah.
Absolutely, I agree with you. So again, we're splitting hairs, so I'm just going to say I lean Diamondback a little bit. One of the cool things too is if you got a little bit more than $500, both of these companies have multiple lines above this. So you don't want to spend $1,000, but you want to spend more than $500. They both have upgraded lines that probably come with better barrels, some different furniture options and things like that. If you're sitting at home right now and you're stroking your Davidson Defense or your Radical firearm or your ATI and you're cussing us out, that's cool. Let us know about it in the comments. That'd be fine. These are the ones that really made it to the top of the list. I'll say we debated Bear Creek Arsenal, but as we really started doing some digging, and I've got a little bit of experience with some uppers, it just didn't feel like it was quite at the same level as these 2. So maybe like honorable mention to Bear Creek. I do like that they're a veteran-owned company. They just didn't quite make the cut for this particular video. But again, you know, let us know in the comments, how is yours set up? What are you running? And as always, guys, like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.